With our next session, Innovating Development, Leveraging Technology for Growth. I'd like to invite our speakers, Mr. Ravi Arora, Senior Vice President, Global Policy and Government Affairs for MasterCard, Ms. Mambali Nandani, Chief Commercial Officer, Lilapa AI from South Africa, Asela Vedyalankara, Managing Director, Talos Consulting from Sri Lanka, Sharing Sige Dorji, Director, Celis Digital Platforms from Bhutan, and our moderator, Neera Dali Chauch, Senior AI Product Manager, Women in AI and Wemtech from France. Could I invite our speakers and moderator on the stage, please? All right, Neera, over to you.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. Sorry. Welcome to this hopefully stimulating session after lunch. Okay. And the session is entitled Innovating for Development. So how we can leverage technology for growth. Over the next 45 minutes, we will explore how actually technology can act as a catalyst to tackle development challenges and promote inclusive and sustainable growth. As we all know, technology has the potential to transform lives and create unprecedented opportunities, but however, the digital divide persists, limiting access to these benefits for much of the global populations. So today we are honored to welcome a panel of outstanding experts that has been presented before, each one bringing a wealth of experience, unique cultural and professional views. So let's start directly. So the first question is for you, Ravi. Ravi, who is like a Senior Vice President at MasterCard. So MasterCard has led efforts, significant efforts in financial inclusion, and with this goal of reaching 1 billion people by 2025. So in your views, what role do you see technology playing in this, bringing this gap? And what are the effective strategies that MasterCard put in place to, and are going to put in place for reaching this goal?
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Naira, first of all, big thanks to ORF for having us here this afternoon. I am, like as you said, with MasterCard, and with MasterCard, we are a technology company in the payments business, connecting the whole ecosystem. We have, we connect about 100 million merchants worldwide, consumers, globally in 210 countries, and maybe transacting in 165 different currencies around the world, right? So every day, day in, day out, enabling transactions as such. Now, if we look at just a step back to, first of all, come Sunday, I believe, right, December 1, South Africa takes on the presidency of the G20. And one of the things, as businesses participating as part of the B20 in this process, of course, working on the G20 front as well. The theme that the B20 has adopted is around inclusive growth and prosperity through global cooperation. And I think this ties very well to the question you asked also, and about MasterCard. We made a commitment in 2020 actually to financially include 500 million people, which then in 2015, and then in 2020 we increased that by another 500 million to 1 billion. And not only that, 1 billion people with 50 million small businesses and 25 million women-owned and women-led businesses to be financially included. So we are well underway on a goal. We are already about 780 million, onboarded and financially included around the world, with about 35 or 38 million of the 50 on the small businesses and so forth. So technology, like you said, plays a very, very big role here, because look at the power. Even if you look here in sub-Saharan Africa, there are overall globally 1.4 billion people that lack access to basic financial services. So technology can have a big transformational effect. But the way you do that is by ensuring access and opportunity. It is not only by providing access and usage, but then going to financial health, security, things of that nature. We have to think about how do we empower markets of the future that is helping people connect in whichever way it works best for them. Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking like, oh, I'm going to use either my card or my mobile phone or whatever to make my payment today. It should be frictionless. It should be trusted. People should be able to trust it. And not have hesitation using it, right? So foundationally, and be sure that there are privacy, there are safeguards, and everything in there so that they are protected, right? So that is important. There should be resilience and adaptability, because now with digital commerce, people are transacting. If digital commerce is becoming the backbone of a lot of economies, because see what COVID did to us, right? Brought a lot more people and the ability to transact. But then how do we open up those supply chains and avenues for small businesses to be able to have opportunities outside of their domain, whether overseas or so on and so forth, right? So how do we drive commerce for them? And how do we, keep ahead of cyber trust and so forth? So what we've been doing is doing that through a variety of partnerships and collaboration. And, I'll come back maybe later and give you some more examples. But net, I would say that this 1 billion target cannot be done. It cannot be done globally and driven top down. It has to happen at the marketplace and understanding the needs and challenges in the local markets by working with individuals locally, right? And that is how we'll get there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for your views. And so, which led me to a question to Mbali. Lalapa AI is working on, so it focuses on African languages, which I believe is like a strategic and very interesting position. So my question here is like, how do you see AI helping to bridge the digital divide in Africa and to help this work toward financial inclusiveness? And I also, just to jump on what Ravi was saying, there's like a strategic topic when you design AI systems, and as I'm working in AI also, it's like how do you ensure enough transparency and accountability on your work and the algorithms that you design to make sure that the population will actually adopt and trust the tools and the algorithms that you are offering.
Yeah. Awesome, thank you. So I think I often start by speaking about, I spoke to an entrepreneur a couple of years ago, and he said something quite powerful that is stuck. He said, if you are trying to build a solution, a technology solution that is meant to help improve the work of a tomato seller in Makola Market in Accra. If you've ever been to Makola Market, it is a crazy, busy, hectic place, but people are working hard. And he said, if you're trying to build a solution for that person, before you build your technology solution, whether it's AI or whatever, please try and go and sell tomatoes in Makola Market first, right? And then you will see how difficult it is and potentially how ineffectual your solution is. And so I think with that context in mind, it becomes really important that technology and AI is built in the global south because of that contextuality. I think one of the really big things that we're engaging when it comes to AI is this idea that there's these big global technologies that are coming in into the markets, but they are not contextual and they're not engaging exactly what it is that the people in the markets truly need. And so when it comes to AI, One, it's not a panacea, it's not going to solve everything. However, the important thing is that actually, based on where we are in the world right now, it's probably the one revolution, we were talking earlier about the different revolutions, it's probably the one where we're actually not behind. Everybody is kind of engaging this, and it becomes really important that we're quite intentional about what this looks like. And I think where we sit, we look at the numbers and we say there are 200 million people who speak Swahili in Africa, as an example. And there are 9 out of 10 people in Nigeria who do not speak English at home. So when we talk about inclusion, if we are not bringing language inclusion into the system, then technology and all this idea about Africa leapfrogging and mobile and all these opportunities actually become ineffective if we are not including the 800 million people in Africa who are very unlikely to be speaking English and are living on less than $5 a day. And so the burning platform becomes all of this that we're building, all the services that are available, whether they're technology-based or not. How do you ensure that they are in the languages that people actually are comfortable to engage, because that is a critical enabler of inclusion. And so the role of AI is in addressing asymmetry of knowledge that currently exists in the system. If you're not versed in English, you're not able to access specific services. And so there's a world that AI allows us to bring services closer to people. If you think of the majority of people in the global south, they don't live as close as they need to the clinic or the hospital or the school. How does technology become that last mile? Technology empowered in the languages that people understand, actually allowing people to access services. One of the things that we work on is a mobile clinic, where the mobile clinic allows people who live in rural areas to actually send WhatsApp messages in their language, and they can send voice notes. And the mobile clinic actually does initial triage using that, and people are able to access in their languages, and the clinicians who don't speak those languages can respond, and the understanding is mitigated and is engaged via AI. So really, addressing asymmetry of knowledge and ensuring that language is being brought in. And I think it's such a beautiful moment in the world where we have the technology to do this at scale, whereas it wasn't possible before. And there's so much more that's available in terms of driving the level of inclusion that is possible now that we're actually able to include people, because we're engaging them in the languages that they can actually engage in.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. And I would like to jump on, because you were like focusing on raising a very important point on which I totally agree, which is there is like this question to have from a global perspective, but like to keep in mind that there are like market specific challenges and different cultural differences. So I'd like to have your view on what has been done by Sri Lanka till now, like as a digital adoption, and how technology contributed to the national development strategy, and actually what are the lessons that could be taken from Sri Lanka and to be shared to the other countries in Global South?
Well, first of all, I hope I can be heard, yes. So thank you for that question. That's a very important one, because it resonates with the fact which all of the speakers have been talking about using technology in a very local context to solve local problems. And the example that I can give that really did make a difference is the QR code fuel app. I'll give you a little bit of context. At the moment, Sri Lanka in 2022 had an economic crisis. And because of that, there was fuel rationing going on. And there were long lines for all the fuel stations, and it made international headlines. That being said, I feel, in my opinion, it was one of the most effective e-commerce solutions and e-government solutions that Sri Lanka did in recent memory, where they introduced in a matter of weeks a QR code system. And this is very fairly standard. The technical complexity is not that great. But the point is, it's the impact that it made. Within a week, the lines just disappeared. And I think that system went on for about 1.5 years without any impact, because it was a public-private partnership. It worked well. And what I wanted to emphasize here is how technology can have the ability to take some problem that we have at the moment, a real social issue, and be the transformative nature of that, where it in fact solve an issue on the ground. And I think when you look at all of the problems our communities face, Global South faces. This is the ethos that you need to follow, where you're using technology. And I think often, I think all of us are technologists, we get lost in the technical elegance of the solution. It's very complex, it's very nice, it has the bells, it has the whistles. And to echo the point you made, perhaps that's not what you need. Perhaps something a little more simple, straightforward, and less elegant, in our sense, will solve a problem. And I think governments or even social enterprises that are looking to solve community-based problems really need to focus on that aspect when we're thinking of that.
Absolutely, totally, and jump on that, absolutely. And I think it's like one of the foundational elements of when you are designing AI systems or like technology is like to first ask, okay, what is the problem that we want to solve? And second, to start with a solution, even if it's like a baseline kind of like of solution, and then you build on that. And I think you can like, still like, I want to jump on the experience of Bhutan on how we could ensure, how could we ensure technology serves marginalized communities in Bhutan? And so, and also maybe also I understood that you had a technical background, so you may jump also on the AI perspective and more technological one.
Thank you. So I'm from this small country called Bhutan, which is located high up in the Himalayas. I have been working in the tech sector in Bhutan for the last 24 years. Just recently, I got appointed as one of the commissioners in the Royal Civil Service Commission. So I'm focusing on how to bring digital transformation within the government in my present position in the Civil Service Commission. Now, as the speakers from the inaugural session said, as one of the developing countries, we share very similar challenges and aspirations when it comes to technology or the development in general. And in Bhutan's case, we are guided by a development philosophy called the gross national happiness. So what this development philosophy tells us is that what is the development for? What is the real purpose of development? It is not growth just for the sake of growth, but what do you want to bring to the people? So the gross national happiness philosophy is all about balance. So you undertake development, you aspire for growth and economic development for the sake of improving the lives of the people, including their psychological well-being. So Bhutan is guided by that philosophy. And within that philosophy, Bhutan has always been giving free healthcare and education to its citizens, and especially in the education sector. I would like to say that we have been very successful. Bhutan achieved 100% primary school enrollment rate in the 1990s. But as a result of the success of education, we got another challenge, that is youth unemployment. So when all the people, all the children in the villages started going to school, we did not prepare enough for what to give them after they complete school. So by 2016 onwards, we have had a lot of young people completing high school and university degrees. And when they came out, we were not able to, our economy was not able to prepare, give them enough jobs. So currently, one of the challenges that Bhutan faces is youth unemployment, I think, which is common to most of our countries in the global south. And to exacerbate this problem, the changes that is happening globally with the technology is not, I think, making it harder, making it more confusing. Because the changes that is happening now is faster than any time in history. So just to reflect, for instance, the camera became popular in around 1885. And 100 years later, in 1983, that is when the personal computer became more common. But if you look back just 40 years from the first common usage of personal computers to 2023, how much technology has changed. It is massive. I was fortunate enough to participate in Cape Town conversation last year as well. And within this 1 year, the change that has taken place in AI is amazing. You know, the usage of ChatGPT and all these different AI tools. You know, what is going to happen in the next 20 years? We can't imagine. And because of this fact, in addition to the normal challenges that we face, the changes that the technology is bringing from the outside, I think this makes it much more difficult for the developing countries. Now, I would like to quickly focus on a few things that Bhutan is doing. Firstly, Bhutan is very actively engaging with the youth. We have a program called the Desung, which stands for Guardians of Peace. So that helps to engage the youth in community service and volunteerism. And on top of that, there is a lot of targeted skilling programs. So I think youth skilling is very important in all our countries. Now, secondly, I think visioning and planning for the future through foresight, I think is very important. And here I would like to mention just 2 specific examples. One is from the recently concluded COP29. So Bhutan led the formation of a grouping called the G0. It's a grouping of 4 carbon negative countries. Do you know which are the 4 carbon negative countries in the world? If not, you can look up. Bhutan is one. So Bhutan has led the formation of a G0 grouping in order to put more focus on drive towards carbon neutrality. And the second thing that Bhutan is doing, it is under the initiative of our king. We are going to build a city. As I mentioned earlier, within the current Bhutan economy, we are not able to create enough jobs for our youth. So Bhutan is going to build a city which is called the Gelifu Mindfulness City. So we hope that even investors and like-minded people from Africa will come and participate. So these are 2 initiatives. So I just wanted to share that perspective from Bhutan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, and I think it's very insightful, which lead me I would like to have more your views on that. Bali, your views on what actually, which role do you believe the African governments can play in supporting your work in the private sector and more globally all the.
Yeah, so I think I kind of alluded to it in the beginning, right? What we don't want is to have a fresh version of hegemony, of digital hegemony, where our commodity, in this case data, leaves the continent to benefit the global north. And I think the first urgent thing that is needed from governments is the requirement that we steward the data that is being created in our countries well. I think there's a lot of solutions that are coming up, and I don't know that we're having sufficient conversations about where is this data going and who is it benefiting. The kinds of conversations we're needing to have with the global technology players is around who owns this data and what is the kind of licensing agreement. So we're now engaging them on different types of licensing agreements, because what they want to pay for is take this technology, we'll pay you to build the model, but they will take the data and continue to benefit from it for decades and decades to come. So there really is a requirement on governments to understand the data of the people, to ensure the sovereignty of the data of the people, because what fuels ChatGPT? Nothing except what all of us have created. All of us created content, and that is the fuel. And the more data, yesterday there was an announcement by Orange and Meta and OpenAI to build more data. Whose data is going to be used for that, and who will it benefit? These are the really critical questions. So that's on the one end in terms of really asking the tough questions. Yes, we're going to get a great solution, but who benefits in the end? And how do communities become the owners of the data that is created from them? 1. 2, how does AI become public infrastructure? There's a working group, and there's different groups globally that are talking about, just as with roads, just as with healthcare and education, how does AI become public infrastructure? Because if AI is seen as public infrastructure, then it means the people in my village of Tlendani in the Eastern Cape, there has to be a way that AI is making their lives better, and the national strategies of the country need to ensure that AI is being brought into their world to make their lives better. And so there's a really big piece of work that's needed across the global south to think about how does AI become public infrastructure? What does that mean in terms of the types of ministries that exist, in terms of the work of the different development banks, the AU, etc. If AI is to be public infrastructure, what does that stretch out in terms of services and how services come about? And so there's really a critical piece of work. And I think the last one is, I think, African governments and governments in the global south really need to be investing in the infrastructure. Right now, the biggest limitation that we have, apart from the data that is available for the languages, because we deal with low resource languages, there's not enough content in our languages. The second one is compute resources. So the thing that makes the engine actually create AI. That's the biggest limitation that we have. It is charged in dollars, and it is not only charged in dollars, it is a whole lot of money. And we don't even have enough access to the GPUs that are needed. And so part of that is investing in infrastructure across the global south that can be accessible by different organizations in the global south, so that we can actually build AI for the global south. We spoke about contextuality and how important that is, but we will not be able to do that if the infrastructure is not being made available in the global south at costs and pricing that can actually be reachable by the organizations and even the public institutions that want to do this kind of work in the global south.
Okay, absolutely. And I think, Asila, I would like to have your views on that, like from the Sri Lanka perspective.
Well, I echo some of those points, and I completely agree. One thing the global south, especially small states like us, need to be aware of is we would, very similar to the social media story, we will end up being users of this technology. We are not really driving this technology to solve developmental problems. That's you know, it's all well and good that social media was good. Yes, it connected people, but how much of a social impact did it make in countries like ours? Again, it could have been more. This is the same conversation that we are seeing now with AI. And I just want to resonate one aspect here in terms of governments digitizing the data. There'll be a lot of players now, given how the ecosystem is configured now. There'll be a lot of stakeholders who are willing to come and digitize that data for you. And I echo your point, is that data really yours? I know there's a lot of debate about data sovereignty. Should data remain or should we be open about it? Yes, leave that aside. But the data is yours. This is your citizens' data. And it is impactful to you. And the more you treat it that way, and the more you are sacrosanct about that data, the more effective you will be in these negotiations. And again, accessibility to these technologies, because how many people can afford this? And there are restrictions on countries. There may be soft restrictions, especially on small states like us, about even getting a certain type of GPU, which is not accessible. Then we have to look at less intensive models. Then we have to look at smaller data sets. How are we going to do that? Is that open source? Is that available? You know, these are the kind of pushbacks that we need to have, especially as small states, especially as states in the global south, where we need to take a collective stand. And I think there's an ideological difference also when it comes to artificial intelligence. We, as the global south, feel it's there to augment the human. I don't think it's the same across the board when it comes to the global north, where there is a conversation of replacing the human. Yeah. So I think we have to be cautious there, because there's an ideological battle going on how we want to use AI. I think that's probably the point I wanted to add there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ravi, I would like to have also you can jump on what has been stated before, or like also have your own public-private partnership that are the most effective. I think you started talking about it quickly, and you wanted to share some examples from MasterCard point of view.
Okay, thanks, Naira. So maybe one or two things, one or two areas I would just maybe weigh in on. I think, when you talked about privacy and principles, I think one of the things I know, like at MasterCard, which is very core. In fact, we were probably amongst one of the first to publish our data privacy principles, because what we believe is that you as an individual own your data. You have the right to specify how and where to use it. Our job is to protect it, right? So in terms of providing the protection, all of the cybersecurity services, everything to make sure that that data is trusted and protected, right? And I think as we talk about infrastructure and public infrastructure that you talked about, I think one of the important things there is to ensure that it's done with good governance and principles in mind, that it does not lead to further fragmentation. And I think that is where I think aligning standards, like to the point that you were making around, from global south, I would say that globally we have to look at how, we make standards more interoperable, as well as more harmonization that can come about, so that allows levels the playing field, that allows everyone to be able to access and, those platforms and so forth, to be able to provide the right solutions and so forth. And I think that is where we look at now, when you talked about public-private partnership, I think, there are, and I think that when we look at it, it takes so many shapes and forms, whether it is helping small businesses thrive, whether it is helping farmers and have them digitally included. I'll give you one or two quick examples. In India, we partnered with one of the financial institutions, HDFC Bank, along with USAID, with USAID. All right, and we set up a $100 million credit facility, which with the primary objective that it had to be for first-time borrowers and for women-owned businesses or women-led businesses, right? So I think when you come and you work with, so we work a lot with, whether it is academia, with NGOs, with civil society, with multilateral institutions. We've been working with the World Bank, the IFC, or the other development banks. So I think that, like this one example, and actually that was done maybe 2-3 years ago, and had a tremendous success rate of purely targeting and helping women-owned businesses with digital solutions. Now another example is also private-private partnership. So let's say when we looked, we worked with another fast-moving goods company like FMCG, Hindustan Lever. And in Africa, one of the markets was where you look at, where some of these small bodegas or these small shacks or shops, right, that carry basic day-to-day goods that people go to and buy, whether it is your toothpaste or soap or daily supply. Now they are sometimes limited because first of all they were only doing cash transaction. How do you help them go digital? Now what we did is we worked with, in this case, a private-private partnership to see how do we, use their purchase and buying patterns and history of digital transactions to then look at alternative methods of providing collateral. Small collateral by looking at it being enabled by digital history and using your digital transaction than traditional collateral methods, right? And that way then you bring them into and financially include them. We've done work in Africa and in many other, where we have millions of farmers. We have a platform called Community Pass. In Community Pass, what we do is these small leasehold farmers, small farmers are not able to leave their land, and a lot of them are owned by women, leave their land to go to the marketplace to get the best price for their produce. So for us, it's not about MasterCard. We provided the platform where now we are bringing in, what we are doing is we are linking the small farmer to farmer producer organizations, these FPOs, to these end buyers, where, let us say, the farmer producer organization says, I need X quintals of rice, for example, of this grade, and this is going to be my price, right? So these small farmers are able to then know for certainty, like what price I'm going to get, and then have like who my buyer is going to be. And then we supplement it by agents that go in these small villages and help with the collection process. So you build an ecosystem, right? So it is not, so you have to go, and look at the problems, locally, and to your points also you made earlier, you have to understand, like to sell tomatoes locally, right? You have to go and understand these issues. What are the problems they're facing? How do you create that ecosystem? And now with the financial institutions that come in, is looking at that transaction history and now offering access to credit. Through the platform, the farmers are getting seed and other produce information about planting and so on and so forth. Plus, we don't assume that everybody has smartphones. So you have to have solutions that are fit for smartphones as well as the regular phones as such. How do you get and get them onto a platform to be able to pay how they want to pay, whether it is QR code driven, whether it is mobile money, mobile solution driven, or whether it is a card access payment. So you have to again work. So these are the kind of examples that I can share with you where I think we've been very successful in, and in this case, in the agriculture, the farmers actually got nearly 20 to 30% higher price for their produce than they normally would have otherwise. So it then again brings them, not only digitally included and financially included, but to be able to get a better price for their produce. So we have to work, collectively with the, stakeholders, and understand that if we can align government policies, if we can align private sector innovation and community engagement, then we can put the technology to the best use possible.
Absolutely, totally agree with, like, we should have this approach, like more heuristic approach, like understanding the whole ecosystem. And also for that, I think like the governments have also to understand the challenges of their own stakeholder in this conversation, like the private sector and the companies that are trying to do this, building the solution. So maybe like you want to jump on, let's try to be quick, because I think we'll try to have some time for questions.
I just like to make 3 quick points. First, we think AI is super intelligent, but at the end of the day, it is created by humans. It's trained by the humans. I'm sure there are companies in South Africa as well where our young people are employed to train the data. I mean, annotation of the data for AI. For instance, for self-driving cars, we need to annotate a lot of videos. Say like, this is a dog, this is a stone. So that has to be first annotated by the humans. So that's the fact of the matter right now. And then whatever is trained by the humans get fed into the deep learning engine, which is basically a neural network. Secondly, I would like to commend the work that Lela AI is doing. I think in the global south, we need more companies like ours. We need to produce our own AI engine. We need to design our own algorithms. Otherwise, AI is, after all, how the algorithm works and how the data has been trained on. So one of the good news is that with the evolution of the technology, there is also something called the small language models that they are talking about, as opposed to large language models. So even with the smaller data sets, I think we are going to get good results in the future, which is good for the global south. And finally, I would like to add that the AI that we have now is what is called the artificial narrow intelligence. It is only able to do some specific tasks. Now people are talking about the next phase of evolution, which is going to be artificial general intelligence, when it is going to be able to maybe match the humans. And in the future, still in the realm of, I think, science fiction now, is what is called artificial super intelligence. Then people are even wondering whether AI is going to have sentience, its own emotions in the future. And the AI that is trained on also need to be trained on certain values. Whose values is it going to be? Is it going to be the African values, Asian values, or the Western values? So there's a whole lot of debate going on out there. Thank you.
Thank you. And just like to sum up quickly before opening a stage for question, hopefully, I just wanted to highlight some element that you shared. I think there is like the important element regarding adopting a local perspective. The asymmetry of knowledge also like should be highly, we should have it in mind when talking about those topics. Also in technology and AI design, making sure that we're focusing on the problem and understanding the ecosystem around the problems. And there is a topic around sovereignty of the data and how we ensure that we put in place the right public infrastructures for addressing those challenges. Okay. Thank you all. I don't know if you have, so we have some questions. The time for some questions from, yeah, please. I don't know if there is a microphone somewhere. Ah, yes, can you come to the mic and quickly present yourself? Thank you.
All right, hi. So my question is just an overall one. I think I heard a lot about how AI and the kind of technological development is happening. Just want to put forward a scenario where what if, just scenario-wise, you have one where technological development in the space stalls, the legal and ethical problems don't necessarily get resolved, but you do have extremely widespread adoption of existing technologies. Just want to hear thoughts on how you would frame that kind of scenario and what that kind of scenario would mean, the implications, because right now we're talking about one where you do have pretty unequal access, but where you have very widespread access across all the angles, without any further development. Just want to understand how you would frame that kind of situation.
Okay, go ahead.
I think I'll start with, right now, I think it's a closing gap. And I think you're right. There's a moment in time where we would have passed the ability to have the right structures in place. I think right now is a good time to be having the kinds of conversations because everyone, including the global north, big tech companies are actually open to having conversations, even though it's tough for them because the negotiation is slightly different to what potentially happens before. So I think the most important thing in light of your question is really being quite thorough and assertive in terms of what happens with our data and how models are trained, but it's a closing gap. If we miss this moment, what you're saying is very, very likely, where the legal part of it is not able to meet the particular requirements, and it's just widespread adoption, and we don't have that type of limit. But this is a critical moment because those conversations are happening, but they need to be happening more robustly.
So just to add on to that,
Yeah.
Great question.
Quickly, please, because we are, thank you.
I know. One thing is, I think social media and the adoption of that really taught the lesson of how we need to approach this problem. And this is why, as the explosion of artificial intelligence, which is about 18 months ago, happened, I would like to call the consumer AI facing part of it. The conversation around regulations also evolved. So we have EU talking about it, we have G7 grouping talking about it, we have ASEAN talking about it, we have OECD talking about it. So, and what's important is the value-based approach that they're taking in order to tackle their problems, because laws and norms will take you so far, but actually a value-based approach as to what are the values that you're basing this on, and therefore looking at it from a regulatory point of view, or ethics standing point of view, and ultimately a governance point of view, which will be a little more helpful in that equation. Thank you for your question.
I think thank you, everyone. If you have a question later, I think the panel will be happy to answer. Okay, so thank you, everyone. And thank
My sincere apologies to the panel and the moderator, but we are 30 minutes over time, so sorry for that. But please join us up top for a quick photograph. In the meantime, I'll request my colleagues to set the stage for the next session. I do have a couple of housekeeping announcements for our international delegates who've joined us. When you exit the hall on your left, just before the door, there is the City Hopper stand for your airport transfers day after. So please do check in with them. They have your flight details. Just confirm them with them such that your airport transfers are smooth. The next session is titled Burning Challenge, Financing Energy Transitions. We will be discussing what are the most effective financing strategies